What would happen if you broke your leg tomorrow or you dropped dead? How would your business survive? Let's talk about that in today's episode. Man, what would happen? Are you prepared for the worst? How's that saying go? Prepare for the worst, but hope for the best? What would you do? What if you were injured? What if you dropped dead? Would your business survive? What would happen? What would be your legacy? These are all tough questions. And I've been struggling with this recently because, man, I've had a lot of difficult things happen to me. We've had some personal friends pass away in the last year or so, and it's just been really hard, and it's made me think, like, am I ready for what happens to me? Would my business survive? What would happen to my kids? What would happen to my wife? What would happen? So I'm going to share with you some real life examples of what's happened to me personally and how it's kind of inspired this video today, and how to prepare for the worst but hope for the best. All right, real life situation here. My best friend growing up, when we were just little kids growing up together, and he recently passed away a year or so ago. And man, it was a massive bummer, and it really made me think, like, what am I doing with my life? This guy was a young guy. He was about 40 years old. He died suddenly from a heart condition he had, and medications. And he had left behind two little boys and a wife and a family, and man, it was a major bummer. I went to this funeral, seeing my best friend from childhood, a guy who's the same age as me, and seeing the grieving family, and we're bawling, and it was a really tough time. And it kind of made me think, man, what would happen? What am I doing today to help my family? What if maybe I don't drop dead? Maybe I broke my leg or something and I couldn't work. What am I gonna do? And these things. And another friend recently, just a month ago, passed away, and man, it was a major bummer. But this gentleman, he was older. He had already had his family, he had grandchildren, and he was retired. And he died too young still, but he had a legacy, and he had the life insurance policy. He had the Roth IRAs, all set up. He's prepared. He had a will. And when we went to the funeral, it was sad. We look at the widow and we think, man, that's a bummer. But she's going to be okay. The family's going to be okay. And when we were at this funeral, people are talking about all the nice things about the guy, and they're remembering him. And the family gets up, and the pastor gets up, and they're telling these nice stories about him. He wasn't a saint, but he was a pretty darn good guy. And the pastor gets up, and he says, he kind of flipped the script. Instead of talking about how great, this individual was, he stopped and he said, you know what? How are you going to be remembered to all of us here in the sanctuary? How are you going to be remembered? Whew, man, I got to pull it together here. This is tough. And then we have a third person who just died just last week. Man, this one was really close to me, and really, really close to our family. And this gentleman, again, he died too young, but he didn't have a life insurance policy. He didn't have any kind of savings. And he had debt, and he left the family in a really difficult time, in a really difficult situation. The estate is in probate. There's a ton of debt, and we don't know what we're going to do. And it kind of made me think back over these three people that have died recently. My best friend growing up, he had a life insurance policy, and it sucks. He's really young, but his family's going to be taken care of. This other guy who died about a month ago, again, he was older, he has grandchildren, he has a legacy. They're going to be taken care of. But this last gentleman, man, bless his heart, he tried, but man, he's sure left us with a mess. And it's really hard, and how are you going to be remembered? And this is important stuff. We got to start thinking about our families, and we got to be thinking about life insurance policies, our Roth IRAs, our investments, our businesses. What are we going to do? What if we broke our leg, or God forbid, we drop dead tomorrow? Is your business in a position to carry on? Do you have a really good CRM or a playbook with all your customers written down, and you can just hand this book off to your next person in charge, or maybe your kids, or maybe your wife, and your wife can hire some people or whatever. Do you have these things in place? Do you have the systems in place to be able to run your business when you're not there? Yeah, this is kind of a tough video, but let's pick it up a little bit, and let's talk about some real things that we can do to prepare today. First and foremost, you got to have a will. Number one, you got to have a will, and in your will, you're going to designate, maybe your wife or maybe your brother, or whatever, somebody that's close to you, to kind of pick up your baton and run with the business. Hopefully, so you got to have a will in place. Second thing you got to have is some sort of life insurance policy. When you drop dead, or maybe some long-term disability or something, if you got injured, you can maybe take a step back, and the business is going to continue to roll on without you. Your bills are going to get paid through either life insurance if you drop dead, or maybe long-term disability if you get injured permanently, or maybe long-term disability. Whatever, you talk to an insurance guy, they'll tell you all about the different disability, short-term, long-term, whatever. I don't know. But this, you got your will, you got your life insurance policy, or your long-term or short-term disabilities. And a third thing, is more importantly directed towards the business, is you got to have a playbook. You got to have, a book that's of all your customers, all their phone numbers, the address, their emails. You got to have it all there. You got to have like their services, what they're doing. Maybe even a playbook as far as to, like Mr. Jones on ABC Street, he likes it extra short, so that the person that's picking up your business is going to be able to just pick it up, and nothing is going to be missed, you know. And yeah, these are tough things. And I didn't think I was going to be making this video, getting all sad, and it's kind of a bummer, but you know, this is real life stuff, man. And this stuff is just not really talked about. What are you going to do? Do you have the systems in place? Are the trucks paid off? What's going to happen if your trucks aren't paid off and you don't have any money coming in, and the business is just going to fall apart? You don't have a playbook, you don't have a CRM, you don't have a will, you don't have life insurance. It's all just going to fall apart. And who's going to be stuck with it? Yeah, your family, your wife, your kids, your brother, your sister, whatever. And you don't want to be remembered as the guy that didn't have things together. You got to be remembered as having a guy, the guy who knew what he was doing. And you cannot just fly by the seat of your pants hoping that you can just get by. Especially if you're older and you got kids, you got a wife, you got cars, you got a mortgage, and you got these things. You really got to be prepared. So again, going back to kind of what the pastor said at that funeral, he's like, how will you be remembered? How will your customers remember you? And man, this is tough. What do I personally have in place? This is just me. I'm not some financial advisor. I'm not telling you what to do, but this is what I've done. One, I've got a will. I've got a will, and it's really clear as day who gets what, how things are run, and the money, how it's all divided. I'm not rich. I'm not rich by any means, but I have it all laid out. Two, I have a life insurance policy. In fact, I have two life insurance policies. That money would pay off the house, it would pay off the business and any kind of debts associated with it. It would pay off a funeral cost, and it would set up my kids with college. Okay. And three, I have set aside all of my business paperwork in a filing cabinet, talking about tax returns, all my client lists, how and the playbook and how they like it, and I guess the taxes is probably the most important thing, how to file taxes, the previous year's taxes, and then the playbook is the biggest thing. I haven't gone as far as to like itemizing every single piece of equipment I have. I just said, okay, well, everything just goes to my wife, or if my wife's dead, my kids or something. It's not that specific, but I got a will, I got a life insurance policy, and I got a playbook. So those are three major things that I've done to ensure that if something happens to me, maybe I'll be okay. And a fourth thing I should probably really look into is some sort of long-term or short-term disability. What if I broke my leg or something and I couldn't bring in a paycheck anymore? That's probably something I should talk to an insurance guy about. So that'll be on my list of things to do. You know. So, any rate, I know this is not your typical video, and it's kind of a bummer. It's kind of a downer. So if you made it this far, I applaud you. This is tough. So really, you guys got to like the video. I know it's kind of a tough video to like, but just do it. If you got anything out of this video, just leave a comment below. Let me know how you feel. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.